And may I request my dear friend, Dr. Ramanuj Samanta, to please share his slides. Ramanuj is assistant professor at the AIMS at Rishikesh, and is an excellent person to boot. And I've known him for many years now, and he'll be sharing two cases. I think three cases with submacular cysticercosis. Ramanuj, please.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible?
Loud and clear, Ramanuj, please.
Yeah. So at the outset, I would like to thank my mentors and colleagues at PGI for including me in this webinar. I will be talking about few cases of subretinal cysticercosis. So my first patient is a 55-year-old male who presented with gradually progressive decreased vision in the left eye for last couple of weeks and presented with the best corrected visual acuity of 3/60. On examination, there was presence of a live undulating translucent cyst in the submacular region. And we can see in the fundus picture that there was also presence of 360-degree RP changes around the subretinal cyst. So the corresponding OCT showed a presence of hyperreflective lesion with surrounding small area of neurosensory detachment. And the autofluorescence also showed 360-degree RPE changes. The diagnosis was also confirmed on ocular ultrasound. So the patient was explained about the need of the surgery and consent for surgery was obtained. So we went ahead with the 25 gauge transconjunctival sutureless vitrectomy. First of all, triamcinolone acetonide was injected and gentle hyaloid removal was done, taking care not to cause any inadvertent rupture of the subretinal cyst so as to avoid any dire complications. And after removing the hyaloid meticulously, peripheral skirts of vitreous was removed thoroughly. And then I made a superior retinotomy. Here I encountered one problem. While I was trying to make a retinotomy through the superior portion, I could not get access because the patient had a very deep-seated eye. So I shifted to the temporal side as we do in temporal phaco and shifted the infusion cannula superonasally. And with the help of 25 gauge active suction silicon tip assisted suction assisted, the cyst was exteriorized into the vitreous cavity. After exteriorizing it into the vitreous cavity, it was rapidly engulfed in the vitreous cavity with the help of the cutter, and which was followed by fluidier exchange, and the patient silicone oil tamponade was done because the patient belonged to a high altitude region. So following following that, the patient, as the patient we had seen preoperatively also had some amount of RP changes. The patient's visual acuity did not improve much and had some amount of subretinal fibrosis and improved the visual acuity to the extent of 3/60. So my next patient is a 35-year-old lady who presented with gradual decreased vision in left eye for last couple of weeks, but she also had a coexistent unrelated acute mastoiditis. So at the time of presentation, she had visual acuity of 6/24. We can see that the presence of a subretinal lesion, and this lesion was confirmed as cysticercosis on ocular ultrasound. But due to mastoiditis, rapid ENT clearance could not be obtained. But after 4 weeks, when she presented, the cyst has increased in size, which we can see in the fundus photo and OCT, and we convinced the patient that it's high time you get operated. But unfortunately, we could not convince her, and she, though he continued to follow up and came back after 6 weeks, her visual acuity had declined further to the extent of 5/60. So we explained everything, and we also provided the option of free surgery at a government setup like us, but unfortunately she was lost to follow up. And when she came back after 6 months, so we can see that there is presence of complete narrow funnel retinal detachment and presence of neovascular glaucoma. Her vision has dropped to the no light perception and pressure of intraocular pressure of 40 millimeter of mercury. So unfortunately, we could not salvage vision in this patient. And my third patient was a 10-year-old female child who presented with diminished vision in the right eye for 6 months. And she also complained of headache and intermittent vomiting for last 3 weeks. So he was treated as posterior uveitis elsewhere with topical steroids, but not of much benefit. At time of presentation to us, her visual acuity was light perception in right eye and left eye was normal, 20/20. So on examination, we could see there was presence of disc edema, peripapillary tortuous vessels, total retinal detachment, and temporal few subretinal bands, and inferonasally of whitish lesion, subretinal lesion, which was suspicious of something. And in the left eye, we saw disc edema. Other than that, the left eye was normal. So when we did ultrasound, we could locate the, again, subretinal cysticercosis with a Scolex. And after doing a brain MRI, we could see multiple neurocysticercus lesions at various stages. So at this point of time, we offered her surgery under nil visual prognosis, but she opted out of surgery and she was given systemic steroids for symptomatic relief and was under neurologist care. So my question to panelists in the sense is that removal of subretinal cysticercosis, what is their take in whether they would like to remove in toto versus engulfing in the vitreous cavity, because literature shows even it is removed rapidly within the vitreous cavity due to good fluidics in the modern vitreoretinal equipment, there is not much of problem. But does engulfing in vitreous cavity, what is done in that case, could have increased the propensity for subretinal fibrosis? But interestingly, we have seen that in our patient also preoperatively, the patient had significant RPE changes. And third, any experience of temporal pars plana approach in deep-seated eyes like we do in temporal phaco or like that. And fourth, aspiration of cyst by cutter versus active silicon tip assisted suction. What is the opinion of House? And what will be the preferred retinotomy location? Because when we try to do it, when there is limited amount of neurosensory detachment, so if it is retinotomy is located away from this, there is difficulty in accessing the cyst. So what should be the preferred retinotomy location? And in no light perception eyes, should they be operated to prevent complications like neovascular glaucoma? So what is their opinion on that?
Thank you, Ramanuj. I think thank you for sticking to time and excellently presenting three cases. I think with varied presentations and outcomes. But I think your main points, you would ask them very well. I'll straight away go to Sangeet Mittal, sir, first for his comments. So if you would like to give your tips on 2-3 points that Ramanuj raised, whether we can look at a temporal approach in these eyes if the eye is deep set, and for submacular cysticercus, which is thankfully not the commonest thing, where would you prefer to make the retinotomy, and your preferred way to either allow the cyst to come out or to manually aspirate or use the cutter? What would be your surgical tips, sir?
Yeah. First thing is like engulfing the cyst inside the eye. I think now it has become a standard approach. We don't enlarge the sclerotomy and bring out the cyst in toto. We generally just keep the cutter close to the cyst and just eat it up. Within a matter of seconds, it just goes inside. And second thing about the temporal approach, I think it's very well since the time I have started using 27 gauge vitrectomy, most of my left eyes I am operating temporally only. And even if you see some videos also, you will notice that the approach is there and it works well. Initially, you do have some difficulty while you are shifting to a temporal approach. The way you are sitting in front of the patient, your legs may hamper your movements. But once you get over that phase, I think temporal approach is quite good. Especially in some patients, it is indicated. And next, coming to the next question was about the instrumentation to remove the cyst. Both the cutter, both the suction and the forceps. There earlier when we used to do vitrectomy, I think Dr. Raman may also remember, we had the special instruments, subretinal instruments. We had a bent forceps, which was 30 gauge. And we used to, so I had used that forceps also while removing this cyst. It just comes out like a forceps delivery. You just need to make a very tiny sclerotomy, retinotomy. You don't need an extensive retinotomy in these cases, just a tiny retinotomy, and just hold it with the forceps and it will come out very nicely, just like a forceps delivery of the baby. And it's just as you see in his case also, using a vacuum, just like a vacuum delivery of the baby. It comes out of a very small opening, the whole big cyst comes out. And the last positioning of the retinotomy, I think, depends on which hand you are comfortable with. If you are right-handed, so just go, I think, towards the, so that you can move your instruments in line with the cyst. You can place your retinotomy like that. If you are left-handed, you have to use the other side of the to make the retinotomy. I think that answers most of his questions. I'd like to ask Raman and Dr. Raja also to elaborate on these.
Dr. Raja, please, and then I'll go to Raman, sir.
Yeah, so very nice presentations, Dr. Raman. What, if you ask my personal experience, fortunately and unfortunately, in the last 10 years, I have not had any encounter with cysticercosis patients. But going by what we know now is that you don't have to bring them out in toto. You can definitely remove them in the vitreous cavity. But I would be worried about definitely leaving behind anything subretinal. You definitely won't want to rupture it subretinal. So overall, I think removing the vitreous itself is probably a good idea. In terms of where you would like to make the retinotomy, definitely where you are comfortable, as Dr. Sangeet Mittal pointed out, that you don't want to make it on the inferior side because then your hands won't reach, or definitely onto the wrong hand side. But whichever approach is more comfortable, you can make it. But in terms of the retinotomy, I definitely want to be slightly more generous than thinking about worrying about making a large opening. It's about trying to remove it in an easier fashion rather than having a chance of rupturing subretinally. Then treating that, removing, washing them, you will have to more spend time over there. So overall, this is my take, that you can definitely remove the cyst within the vitreous cavity.
Can I make a brief comment, sir?
Sure, Raman, please.
Yes, the problem was if some cyst has a limited amount of neurosensory detachment around the cyst, I think then there is a problem of removing, because doing retinotomy away from the cyst will cause bending of the soft tip. And again, what I did a retinotomy a bit away, and then I injected subretinal some kind of BSS so that it creates some kind of space. Then I tried to access. So if it kind of have some kind of neurosensory detachment, preoperative OCT will help to locate it, which site has more kind of neurosensory detachment. Probably intraoperative OCT will also help, but most of the persons will not have access to that. So I think,
yeah. So if there is more fluid towards the macular side, obviously you will have to do it on some other portion and create some amount of RD so that you can get access and easily remove it. So that's not an issue. But for me, as I said, I haven't seen, I see more of subretinal PFCL with that kind of OCT than subretinal cysticercosis. But then, yes, your point is right, that wherever there is fluid, you try to go there, you will have space. If not, you have to create a retinal detachment, remove it.
Absolutely. Raman, sir, final comments from you, and then we'll go to the next case.
I think most of the things has been answered. People have tried moving the cysticercosis with the PFCL, but if there is a fibrosis around it, it will not move actually. But if there is a something, the fibrosis is not there, you can always try PFCL and just moving it away. But yes, Raghunath, the main thing is you don't want to make a retinotomy over it and rupture this thing, But whatever you're doing is creating RD and trying to take it away from the posterior pole is wonderful idea. Yeah, great case.
Terrific work, Ramanuj. I think posterior pole induction of RD was, I think, the point that you made right. If the fluid's not right, if the fluid's not there, you induce an RD so that you have more space to manipulate, and your instrument is not hitting either the choroid or that. I think great point, Ramanuj.